Mining, along with logging, hydrocarbon extraction, and agribusiness, literally transforms the landscape into a source of valuable commodities. This talk explores how extractive industries, facilitated by neoliberal policy instruments, bring the abstract consumptive power of the global economy into contact with the material landscape. By focusing on two corporations and their mining projects in the Andes, I examined the parallel innovations of neoliberal policies designed to accelerate the flow of capital and of extractive technology designed to maximize access to mineral wealth. The projects are the Sumitomo Corporation's San Cristóbal mine, currently the largest in Bolivia, and Bear Creek Mining's fruitless Santa Ana mine, which was blocked by protests in Peru in 2011. The two corporate characters at the heart of the story differ greatly in scale and sophistication. Sumitomo Corporation, which has over 70,000 employees, is part of the larger Sumitomo Keiretsu, one of several fleets of allied corporate entities in Japan. Bear Creek Mining, by comparison, is a far smaller and nimbler corporate entity, a gossamer-winged creation of mining consultants and ore prospectors, property deeds, and operational proposals that is listed on the venture capital wing of the Toronto Stock Exchange. Yet the legal environment created by neoliberalism places nimble startups like Bear Creek, with a 2014 payroll of under $1 million, on equal legal footing with the mining conglomerates. The San Cristóbal mine lies in the desert highlands of Bolivia's Potosi department. U.S. and Bolivian geological services jointly surveyed the region in 1966 and proposed open-pit silver mining. Prospectors affiliated with Apex Silver Mines acquired the rights and began systemic exploratory drilling in 1996. In 3 years, they had drilled 742 holes and extracted 170 kilometers of vertical core samples to chart a mass of low-grade silver ore. The exploration and the ore body itself nearly surrounded the town of San Cristóbal. It would take another 9 years to relocate the town, carve out the land, and begin processing the ore body into silver-containing lead and zinc concentrates, which are exported by a Chilean port. The mine now moves over 50,000 metric tons of rock per day, operates regular plane flights from La Paz, and is the largest mining operation in Bolivia. Santa Ana, a would-be silver mine that was planned for Peru's southern Puno region, also lies on the high desert plateau, 45 kilometers west of the outflow point of Lake Titicaca, whose crystalline waters and surrounding mountains have long been sacred features of the regional landscape. In 2004, Bear Creek Mining arranged for a Peruvian employee to purchase 6 concessions totaling 5,400 hectares. The company then secured a presidential decree authorizing its ownership of a mine within 50 kilometers of the border, which was barred to foreigners by the Peruvian constitution. Mine engineers planned to divert water from a local river and use cyanide heap leaching to extract the 47 million ounces of silver. In 2011, local resistance to the Santa Ana project would become the center of a region-wide protest campaign that cut off road traffic to Bolivia. On June 24th of that year, the Peruvian government revoked the 2007 decree and agreed that future mining concessions will be subject to a new law on prior indigenous consultation. While the mine was effectively canceled, Bear Creek pursued an international arbitration complaint against the Peruvian government before the International Center for the Settlement of Investment Disputes, demanding $500 million in compensation. The global demand for precious metals has to be operationalized through a series of schema that operate on the levels of engineering, mine operations, property ownership, territorial governance, national investment climate, and capital mobilization. My purpose today is to examine these spatialized practices from the grids of exploratory core samples and spiraling open pits cut into the earth, to the rectilinear concession blocks through which mineral leases are granted and sold, to corporate evaluations of drilling plans that see an extractive project primarily as a stream of future revenue rather than a material operation. In effect, they securitize mining prospects, connecting them to speculative capital and enlarging the number of global South and indigenous communities threatened with the loss and contamination of their land base. The neoliberal context for extractivism. As in many countries, facilitating foreign investment in extractive industries was a core component of Peru's neoliberal turn, led by the government of Alberto Fujimori in the 1990s. Extractive industry investors were given the opportunity to purchase portions of rapidly dismantled state-owned companies. Oil and gas operations in the Amazon were made tax-free, environmental reviews were streamlined, and investors were given longer deadlines to find and extract mineral wealth. Mining royalties were eliminated altogether, meaning that mining firms only paid nominal corporate taxes, even when they extracted publicly owned mineral wealth. The spatial technology at the heart of this investment push is the concession block. An extraction contract is sold to a mining, oil, or gas company with the agreement that they will prospect an area, called a concession, for extractable riches. Mineral concessions are proposed and claimed by prospecting companies who then file paperwork with the government. The concession blocks do not conform to features on the ground, such as the boundaries of lakes, rivers, and watersheds, nor to geological features, mountain divides and drainages, nor to access roads, regions, or provinces. Concession contracts were packaged with so-called stabilization agreements that froze taxes and regulation for the life of the investment. Another guarantee was Investor-State Dispute Settlement, or ISDS, which allows investing corporations to file a complaint and directly seek monetary damages for their lost profits when governments change laws or rules. ISDS is required under the Canada-Peru Free Trade Agreement, the basis for Bear Creek's current legal claim. Spiraling open pits. Eduardo Godinez situates open pit mines as an example of the third generation of extractive technologies, one step in a process of, quote, growing intensity in the appropriation of natural resources, unquote, in which increasingly powerful technologies use increasingly large quantities of energy, water, and consumed material to extract commodities embedded at ever smaller densities within the earth. From above, an open pit mine appears as an irregular spiral of grooves. It is an artificially descending landscape interrupting the smoother forms of mountains and erasing towns and streams. Rather than a network of caverns, it is an organized effort to extract, carry, and chemically process the entire landscape. The process seeks out not nuggets or grains of silver, not even silver dust, but a raw content of silver atoms to be accumulated for sale. Oversized bulldozers and trailer trucks operate on paths they themselves have dug. At any given time, the center of the mine is a level zone for breaking up and loading rock. A handful of giant trucks haul this freshly broken rock, climb a gradually sloping roadway, and deliver it to an on-site processing plant. In that plant, rock is crushed into miniature pieces so that they can be combined with caustic chemicals that bind with the desired products. These technologies do not so much make extraction efficient as make it imaginable. Describing the prototype open pit mine, the 1977 Delamar mine in Idaho, federal regulators marveled that, quote, there are no veins or nuggets at the site because the area has been intermittently mined and coned for the more obvious finds ever since 1863. What remains is an unusual form of disseminated silver locked in tiny particles within soft clay and hard siliceous volcanic rock. Without this technological shift, the mining industry and its financial backers would not regard silver-containing rock as a low concentration ore body at all, or Santa Ana as a find. Santa Ana contains just 30 grams of silver per ton of rock, enough for 3.5 typical rings. By comparison, a ton of discarded mobile phones contains 3,000 grams of silver, 340 grams of gold, and 140 grams of palladium. Junior mining companies. Bear Creek Mining was started in 2000 as a partnership of 14 executives and geologists. In 2002, with a half dozen mining concessions in hand, they went public on the Vancouver-based TSX Venture Exchange. In short, Bear Creek is a startup. While far from Peru, Vancouver's business district is a core location for Canada's mining sector and for large-scale finance. Canada is a global mining powerhouse, with 1,216 mining firms are listed on the TSX and TSX Venture Exchanges as of November 2017, constituting 57% of global mining financing. In 2012, Canadian traded firms supervised over 9,000 mining projects, over 1,500 of which were in Latin America, where they may account for the majority of all mining activity in the region. While the San Cristóbal mine's open pit exists in the desert plateau of Potosí, the Santa Ana Silver Project pit exists only in the feasibility study prepared by Ausenco Vector, a mining engineering consultancy. Aside from documenting the mineral resource and proposing a plan to extract it, a feasibility study calculates a net present value and an internal rate of return. Peter Brown, an early investor in Bear Creek, noted, detailed feasibility studies are sometimes described as bankable feasibility studies because they provide a detailed picture of the project's value and prospects for investors and lenders. Actual development of a mining project requires the orchestration of finance capital, accomplished as a dance between small and large corporations. Major mining firms like Sumitomo Corporation employ thousands of miners and engineers, own large-scale equipment, and have well-developed mineral processing and sales networks, and turn their massive throughput of minerals into a source of capital, which they can then risk in the exploration and development phases of new mines. Junior mining companies have none of this. Their business plan is to be acquired by the giant miners. As such, they can structure themselves without important components of a full-grown corporation. Bear Creek Mining is headquartered in Vancouver, British Columbia, but is just one of 9 firms that lists Suite 1400 of 400 Burrard Street as its corporate head office. In its plans, all phases of mining are outsourced. The Santa Ana feasibility study, produced by a consulting firm, declares simply the plan for the operation of the mine is to use a contract miner. At their second project, Karani, the engineering, procurement, and construction management team, responsible for writing 12 plans to operate the mine and supervising 18 contracts, would itself be an outside contractor. Bear Creek Mining is in essence a portfolio of mineral leases, prospecting reports, and feasibility studies, the last of which is essentially the custom-built software for running a mine, software that they lack the ability to execute. Peru's lawyers before the ICSID have argued that, quote, Bear Creek is not a mining company at all. A mining company is a company that builds and operates mines. Bear Creek has done neither. Junior mining firms may face structural difficulties in bringing a mine into production, but the two models are not competitors. Rather, they interact symbiotically to outsource the risks and expense of exploration. This poses new problems for communities. Instead of a few majors making bets on where to place a mine next, hundreds of juniors are staking claims for damaging development. These ventures are nearly invulnerable to public scrutiny or activist pressure in their home countries. Junior mining firms can tilt the ground on which socio-environmental conflicts are waged away from the communities who have to live with the effects of mining over the long run. Moreover, in the event of local resistance, firms like Bear Creek have recourse to an international investment tribunal. The company argued before the ICSID that the government of Peru owed it compensation for the entire bankable value of the mine as laid out in the feasibility study. Ultimately, the court ruled limited damages to $24 million, compensating Bear Creek for all its direct investments costs in the mine, plus most of its attorney's fees. Under neoliberally structured extractivism, the mineral deposits of Santa Ana, San Cristóbal, and thousands of other places are packaged and resold in a nested series of financial instruments, each less tangible than the last. This process connects the mining sector with increasingly large flows of liquid capital. In the aspirations of their salespeople, who may sit in the Peruvian Ministry of Mines or in a trading desk in Vancouver, these are simply financial instruments that offer investors a return on investment. This interlocking machinery, the concession block system, neoliberal streamlining of the investment process, junior mining startups, and the Canada-based exchanges on which they trade, opens vast areas to investment by speculative capital. Ultimately, long chains of spatial schema and technology must be connected for the transactions to succeed. In the process, nearly all of the material effects of extraction, displacement, water consumption and pollution, tailings ponds and waste rock piles, shattered landscapes, and dried up farmlands occur in hermetic isolation from the spaces of investment where fundamental decisions are made. However, the protests of affected communities can, by causing governments to interrupt the smooth transmission among these disparate spatial scales, these multiple gears of commodification and financialization, choke the engine of extraction. Thank you.